So guys, I'm going to explain you all about scope, right? So in JavaScript, there is a term scope, right? Referred to the context in which variables and function are declared and accessed. It determines the visibility and accessibility of variables and function in different part of your code, right? So and there are two types. There are two main types actually of scope in JavaScript. One is a global and second is a local scope, right? So I'm going to explain you about global scope. What is a global scope? In global scope, like a variable declared outside of any function or block have a global scope. They can be accessed from anywhere in your code, both inside and outside functions, right? So it is a syntax part, variable with a global scope. Let global variable is equal to I am global. Function example function access a global variable console.log global variable, alright? And calling the function example function and output I am global, right? So this is a syntax, right? So I will explain you what is the about the syntax actually. So global variable is declared outside any function, giving it global scope, and the example function can access and long the value of global variable. This is global variable. Come to the local scope. What is local scope? See, variable declared inside a function. See, variable declared inside a function or block have a local scope. They are only accessible within that function or block. It is about local scope. Syntax. Function example function variable with the local scope. Let local variable do I am local. Access in the local variable console.log local variables, and trying to access the local variable outside the function will result in an error. Console.log local variable refer. This is about comment section. What is about local variable in the console? Like a reference error, the local variable is not defined, right? So everything I wrote about in the comment section, what is all about in every code which is there in the syntax. Okay, so what is the block scope, right? So I will explain you about explanation part of this first syntax, right? The syntax which I told you about local scope, I will explain to you all. So local variable is declared inside the example function, giving it a local scope, and attempting to access local variable outside the function result in a reference error, right? Reference error, because it is not defined in that scope. So this is explanation of that syntax. So come to the block scope. Like the let and I'm going to explain you about block scope. Like the let and const keyword allow the creations of variable with the block scope. Variable declared with the let or const are only accessible within the block where they are defined, and this is a syntax part of that block scope. Block scope with let, if true, let block variable is equal to am block scope console.log block variables, right? Trying to access the block variable outside the block will result in error. Console.log block variable reference error block variable is not defined. So I'm going to explain, this is a syntax part, I'm going to explain you about what the syntax is going on, right? So block variable is declared inside the if block, giving it block scope, and attempting to access block variable outside the block result in a reference error, right? So key point, global scope is accessible throughout the entire program. The second point, the second key point, local scope is limited to the function or block where the value is declared. Key point third, block scope is introduced with let and const and is conformed to the block where the variable is defined, right? So understanding scope is a crucial for writing like commentable and error-free code. It helps prevent naming conflicts and allow for better control over variable feasibility. This is all about, guys, scope, where I explain you about first global scope, local scope, then after that block scope introduced in ES6 2015, right? So this is all about I explain you, guys. Let's meet in the next video.